Yes, I had an affair. That's my business. It's done. It may be bad, but it's not a crime. I don't deserve to get persecuted for the rest of my life because of it. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over a story titled, I Had an Affair and It Ruined My Marriage. And guys, this story, hands down, has to be written by the most narcissistic human being to walk the face of the earth. This woman, she's in her early 30s, has 3 kids, obviously been married for a little while, even though she's early 30s, so married young. And long story short, she ended up having a 5-month affair with one of her coworkers. Okay? And eventually came clean about it, so she claims. And to no surprise, her husband, who she describes in the beginning as a very good man who didn't do anything wrong, but she's just an a-hole, walked out on her. Surprise, surprise, he left her. And now, after a while, guess what? He wants nothing to do with her, obviously. They're going to be obviously getting divorced soon. She's been shunned essentially by her family, friends, and everyone, and she's spending the entire time ranting and going on this psychotic rant, complaining about everything. Not once take any real accountability for her actions. So the old joke about women and accountability, it's unbelievable. And the whole time she actually expects to get pity, for people to take her side. It's unbelievable. And you guys will see more I talk about as I go on this. And she has just been torn apart in the comment section, which I'll read some of those at the very end here. But this is a perfect example, I could tell you guys. More and more as time goes on, you have more of these narcissistic types. You know what I'm talking about here. And this is just the worst I've ever read. So it starts off, she says, well, there it is. It's been almost 6 months since I confessed everything to my husband and he walked out. I've kept the reasons for our separation vague with everyone, including even my closest friends and family. I occasionally mention that it's my fault, and everyone always tries to tell me it's not, and says it takes 2. I guess so, but in this case, that the 2 that ruined everything were me and my boyfriend. So notice right from the first paragraph, she's being intentionally vague about the reason she and her husband have split up, why he walked out. She can't admit to everybody the truth of what happened, at least in the beginning, right? Because she knows she's going to be obviously eviscerated about this. So and so they don't know any better, so they say it takes 2. Well, wait till you see. It says it's an awful thing, and I have no excuse. Yeah, we'll see. My husband was not a bad husband nor a bad father. He was actually fantastic at both and has a heart of gold. He's not one of those shit-ass, uninvolved deadbeat husbands or fathers. He was very tuned in, helped with everything around the house without me nagging, took initiative with the kids. We had issues, and he's now become an overly lenient father when he has our kids 3 days a week, which is really pissing me off. But none of this is actually what led to me doing what I did. Okay, does this sound familiar? The husband, as she said, was great. She said he was actually fantastic at both and has a heart of gold. And yet, she was still cheating on him. And I don't mean just one time she slipped up, whatever you want to call it, hooked up with somebody, then confessed. 5-month affair. Okay, this is a lot of calculating and sneaking around and planning. Whole different story than just cheating one time, right? And again, these stories always go, the husbands are actually really good to her, the kids provide, do their best, doesn't matter. She says, I just got bored. There you go. One of the reasons I'd say I'm against marriage, because eventually people do get bored. That's the simple, disgusting truth. Our spark was gone. We've been together going on for 12 years and got together really young. Kids came after. Things stayed exciting and new for a long time. He was so sweet and fun. Now we're both in our early 30s and life has slowed down. Oh, you're so old. Early 30s. Boo-hoo. So obviously, they've been together for 12 years, so they got together and she was like 20 years old or something like that. Okay, way too young. What do I say all the time? If you're going to get married, wait until you're like close to 30. Really do some living. But they got too young, and then they had 3 kids. Now, watch, she's going to complain about the money. She said, money has been a constant stressor for years and years, particularly after we had our 3rd child. Well, then stop having kids. If you and your wife have a certain household income, which isn't going to grow very much beyond a certain point, then don't have additional children if you can't afford it. I mean, come on. I know I'm going to get some shit about this. People are going to bitch about me for saying that. SSM, how can you say that? Well, it's reality. You add massive expenses. If you can only afford one kid, you have one kid. You can only afford two kids, you have two kids. And you take precautions to make sure, as a married couple, you don't have more. Otherwise, that's going to make things very tough. And nothing can cause turmoil in a relationship, a marriage, than financial issues. I'm going to get shit about that. Just you watch, guys. Watch the comment section. Watch people bitching about what I just said there. She says he struggles with PTSD and depression, largely rooted in his job as a first responder. Him being gone 24 hours at a time is also something I honestly never adjusted to, even though this was his job even before I met him. So she knew what she was getting into when they first met, but they were young and in love, so she didn't look at the big picture. If you're adult enough to get married, then you're adult enough to look at the picture and say, he has a job, he's going to be gone a lot, stressful, all that, so maybe I shouldn't get involved with him, that's going to be an issue. Nope. She says, I got tired of him not being here, either because he was at work or mentally checked out. Oh, and guess what? If he probably wasn't working all the time, she'd be bitching because he was at home. I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details, but I met another man shortly after getting a part-time job. He sweeps me off my feet so effing fast. How is he sweeping you off your feet? You're married. He's not exactly taking you out fancy dinners or taking you off to some vacation spot. How's he sweeping you off your feet? You're a married woman and a mom. You're cheating not only on your husband, but also your kids. Our relationship grew, and for 5 months, I was infatuated with him. This relationship was physical as well as emotional. Well, no shit, honey. It wasn't hard to find time to be together or hide it, though I never brought him around my kids. Eventually, the guilt just got to be too much. I told my husband everything, and he was distraught. I realized what I'd done and risked losing and promised him it was over. I had already quit my job earlier that week and told him I didn't like not being a stay-at-home mom to our youngest. Given what you're about to hear, guys, I don't necessarily buy she just decided to tell him. I'm sure there were other things that were going to probably reveal what she was doing and therefore let it out. Or this is her way of getting out, having to work part-time. I really did break his heart, and he didn't deserve it. I wrecked our family and have sentenced our kids to being shuffled back and forth until they're out on their own. I hate this so much, and I wish he'd just take me back, but I don't see it happening. Doing this for 5 months, of course he's not going to take you back. Good for him for separating, but a lot of guys wouldn't do that. Now, this is her update. After 9 months of this, being pissed off that he's not taking her back and her having to deal with her consequences of her action. Here's when the narcissism truly comes out. The title of her second video or story is, One Mistake Doesn't Mean I Should Be Condemned Forever. She says, I'm exhausted that I'm never going to live down my mistakes, online or offline. Yes, I had an affair. That's my business. It's done. I may be bad, but it's not a crime. I don't deserve to get persecuted for the rest of my life because of it. And there you go. Well, she's complaining about online. Well, she should have posted her story for the whole world to see if she didn't expect to be hammered in comment section for her actions, because she's a total a-hole. She says, it doesn't make my ex a saint. I love him, but I hate him. He's an angel, but an a-hole. His best friend called me the C word, and he defended him. He never used to talk to me about like that, and would have knocked anyone out who hurt me in such a way. I am not evil. I am a human. I'm a good mom. I was a good wife before I messed things up. Stop right there. You're not a good mom or a good wife or anything like that if you were doing an affair for 5 months. That's not what a good mom does to her kids or a good wife, okay? And if it was one time hooked up with somebody, whatever, that's bad enough. Don't get me wrong, but a full-fledged 5-month affair of lying, cheating, deceiving, sneaking around, all these things, risking maybe her catching something and then giving it to the husband. You get the point? No. That's awful. She says here, I used to make homemade meals every day for us. Sometimes he wouldn't even eat them. I did his laundry most of that time, and he'd say thanks, but I don't think he ever meant it. I knew what I was getting into, marrying him, but I did not know what it would really be like having a family with a man who's working and away for full days. Well, maybe you shouldn't rush to get married at like 20 years old. There's an idea. Or maybe you shouldn't have had 3 kids when maybe you could only afford to have 1 or 2. There's an idea. Or maybe you talked to him about it instead of just bottling it all up and being resentful. There's an idea. She says, no, even my own family is still mad at me for what I did, and it's been over a year. My own mother and sister, who I treasure deeply. They'll blow me off whenever I rant about him, no matter how valid, and my sister has told me I shouldn't have done what I did to him. She says, no shit, but it's happened. I can't change it. Can you imagine how this feels? So, have you heard any remorse for her actions? Not one. It's all about her, me. And yes, the family, remember in the beginning, she wouldn't give the real reason what happened. She just said, something happened, and because obviously she knew that people would have an issue with what she did. She says he is sometimes a good dad, sometimes not. He is lazy. He does not prioritize raising well-behaved, respectful kids like I do. He'll let them run amok for his own convenience, and always did. Remember in the beginning how she said he had a heart of gold and he was so great, but now after he walked out on her, because he has every right to, and then now split up and he won't take her back, now all of a sudden he's lazy and doing all these awful things. Isn't that amazing? She said, he would say, well, I work so much. I want my time with them to be pleasant as possible. That's not what parenting is. Letting them spend all day on screens and eat whatever they want. I sacrifice daily to raise good children and do the things that matter. I'm brainstorming day and night on how to make each day enriching, educational, and warm. I have Pinterest boards with thousands of ideas. It was always me, but one mistake makes me a bad mom, a bad woman, a bad everything. I've lost friends. One who seemed genuinely shocked I did what I did because he's such a sweetheart. Smooth way of telling me you got the hots for my man. Oh my God. So listen to her complain about all the stuff that she does for her kids. That's called being a mom, okay? There was a time and place that mothers would take pride in doing all the things they did, the planning, the preparation, all that stuff for her kids. But nowadays it's a burden. It's an awful thing. And right here, her friend was saying that her husband was such a sweetheart, and she immediately assumes that now that means her friends have the hots for him. She goes on, I tried over and over to fix things. He's the one who just gave up and moved into that frat house he calls a home. I drove past there last week and it looks like they haven't mowed the grass in an effing decade. I called the city on them. It's an eyesore. Did they get in trouble? Of course not. They have connections. They can do nothing wrong, while I can do nothing right to everyone we know. So he moved out. Big deal. He has every right. And so he's not mowing the lawn. Maybe he's depressed. She mentioned in the first story that he's depressed. Well, you find out your wife's having a 5-month affair, I think most guys would be depressed too. And they may not be so motivated to do things like mow the grass all the time, amongst many other things, because they're coping with the heartbreak, the betrayal, starting over. And she called the city to complain because he wasn't mowing the lawn. He told this girl's psycho. She goes on in her rant. She says, "Oh, and the aforementioned friend who lives with and our girls are with during the days with their dad broke our youngest daughter's arm when she was 1 year old. No one asked how that made me feel. It was an accident, and I'd never seen a grown man cry so much. Somehow I wound up feeling bad for him at the time. Just because her dad could overlook that doesn't mean I could. No one will understand the shock, panic, and betrayal that you go through something like that until you experience it. My baby was an arm cast, confused and scared, but she never seemed to care he hurt her either. It's like I'm in some alternative universe where accountability doesn't exist. The only accountability that doesn't exist is with you. You're the one that caused all this, and you make it all about you. You hurt your husband, you hurt your kids. You're the reason what's going on is here. And the reason you have friends and family that don't want to really have anything to do with you is because of that. Accept the accountability. Take responsibility for your actions, but nope. It's easier to rant and rave and point the finger everybody else is awful instead of realizing you're doing it. I don't think I'll ever get over that, but I'm just supposed to drop it while never being able to live down my own sins. This is misogyny in the works right here, folks. No one ever asked how I was. People are cutting you off and he wants nothing to do with you and he moved out and that's labeled misogyny? Okay. He turned his back on me and lords finances over me. We both still want the kids to have a stay-at-home parent rather than spending so much time in aftercare daycare, so he'll still pay for the bills and groceries in my household, and will until the youngest is in school. Of course, I know that's extremely generous, and it's a blessing not many exes have, but he has said that more than once, if it wasn't for the kids, I wouldn't be giving you a dime. Is that not cruel? Am I an animal? So they're split up, and he's choosing to let her be a stay-at-home mom, not work, and pay for everything still. and she's bitching and complaining about that I'm being held over for this. You got to be kidding me. And of course, she wouldn't get a dime if it weren't for the kids. He knows I need his help with so many things and doesn't care. In the winter, me and my mom and sister all need our driveways cleared. Does he care? No. He'd rather do it for other people for money. Unless they're old like my mom, and then he'll just do it for free. So he looks like a saint again. But me, I can just suffer with our kids. I'm a small stature woman. How am I supposed to deal with heavy snowfalls and ice? Now she's bitching because he doesn't want to go over to her house and shovel the snow. They're split up. They're effectively divorced. Not officially, but effectively. So why should he go to her house and shovel the snow? Here's an idea. She can shovel the snow. Or the kids can help shovel the snow. All right? When I was 9 years old, moved from California to Pennsylvania, and the first winter we had in Pennsylvania, when of course we had a lot of snow, guess what? My 9-year-old ass was out there shoveling snow, the driveway, the sidewalk, clearing up ice, because that's what you do. And I guarantee I was a lot smaller than her small-statured self. And I was obviously a lot weaker, but I did it. It took me a long time, but I did it. That's how my parents raised me. So she can shovel snow. Her kids can shovel snow. Bitch and complain, bitch and complain, bitch and complain. Poor me. Says here, I never knew how to do certain things like maintenance on a car, or who to call when the sink stops draining. So I naturally call him, and he will text me the address of a mechanic or the number for a plumber. Extreme passive aggression, is it not? This is still the house and car his children are in most of the time. The vows were in sickness and in health until death do you part. I broke one half of the agreement, faithfulness. He broke the other half until death do you part. So he's the villain here she cheated for 5 months and is awful about it. No remorse, but he's the bad guy because he's walking out on her ass. And by the way, yes, Google a mechanic. Google anybody else, a plumber, to fix a problem. That's what adults do. It's not rocket science. She says, I'm just exhausted and miserable and know this won't change until my kids are grown, if ever. I'm lower than a murderer in everyone's eyes and can never make up for it. My own kids treat me like a second-class citizen because their dad's priority is making every moment fun and happy, not being a parent who's molding their adults of tomorrow like me. I wish I knew how to change things for the better. I have no friends or hobbies anymore, and my own sister I used to talk and see every single day has distanced herself. The one person I thought would never leave me no matter what has left me. I am not a bad person and don't deserve all this. I will keep my head high. So there you go, guys. That long-ass rant that is probably making you guys want to puncture your eardrums at this point. That, as I told you, is the most narcissistic post story I ever heard. She gets the award. And you know what? Boo-hoo. She brought it on herself. And probably these people would probably be a lot more pleasant with her, giving her a chance that she would actually take ownership of her true ownership of what she did. But she's not. So she probably just angers and infuriates more people. It's over. End of story. Better just move on with the divorce and take a good hard look at herself in the mirror, etc., etc. Now, real quick for fun, guys, I got a few comments here, which are pretty funny. And by the way, before I do it, apparently this was sent from a subscriber, and you know who you are. I forgot to write your name down. But apparently she had other posts in her history, and they just spew the narcissism and how mental she is. Now, one guy says, OMG, I read your post history. I feel so bad for him. You sound like a narcissist. Listen to what people have told you and focus on changing and improving yourself. Stop focusing on faults and flaws of others. There's an idea, but do narcissists ever do that? No. It's everybody else, not them. Another guy says here, you don't sound remorseful for what you've done. Cheating is not a mistake. Cheating is a deliberate, planned choice that you made, and it comes with consequences. You're the one that chose to destroy this family. You should have communicated your needs or the lack thereof. Instead, you chose to make a mistake. Yeah, right. Did it just happen, or was there texting, stealing time from your kids, etc.? You know what you did, and your character will forever be tainted. Correct. It wasn't just a one-time thing. She carefully planned all this, and behind the scenes, the texting, the emails, the quick meetups, the probably meeting in the hotel room, motel room, his house, whatever. That's a lot of planning for 5 months. And this is just what she gave everybody here online. I'm sure there's way more stuff going on. Another guy says, shut the F up, cheater. You're lower than trash. Good on your family for ignoring your psycho lies. Your own kids will know you ruined their lives. Very harsh, but very fair. And last one, the guy says, so in summary, you cheat on your husband, got found out, and everyone hates you now. That's what you get for effing around. You're projecting your guilt, in my opinion. For your kid's sake, get some therapy and leave that man alone. Hopefully he can find someone faithful to be with him. Amen. Get the divorce, sever ties, and destroy, make it official, get some freaking therapy, start working on herself, etc. But is she going to do that? No. It's way easier to point the finger and blame everybody else and take some accountability. And remember, she's in her early 30s. She's not that old. But someone with that level of some lack of that maturity and accountability is raising kids. Good Lord. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me just think about this. What I tell you, biggest narcissist ever. Hands down, that I've ever covered any of these stories. And guys, also, if you got a really good story like to share, by all means, email it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just be sure to include the link to whatever article or post online that comes from. That way I can cover it. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.